Taming the High Cost of College, Episode 45.
You have kids, they grow up, and before you know it, it's time to plan for college.
Where do you start?
How much is it going to cost?
Will you qualify for financial aid?
Should you be looking into scholarships?
When will you be able to retire?
What about student loans?
The list of questions is never ending. The good news is, all the answers are right here. Welcome to the Taming the High Cost of College podcast. Here is your host, certified financial planner, Brad Baldridge.
Hello, and welcome to Taming the High Cost of College. I'm your host, Brad Baldridge. On today's episode, we have a great interview with Jodi Okun. She's a college planning expert, and we spend some time talking about Twitter chats, which is a great way for you to get some very quick information and see what's going on in the college planning world. So if you don't know what a Twitter chat is, stay tuned, and we'll get into that a little bit. We also talk quite a bit about having the college money talk, or as we call it, just the money talk. In other words, when you're talking with your student, when do you bring up the idea of college costs and who's going to pay what? And how do you do that? And how do you make that as productive as possible? So Jodi and I talk about it. We give you some ideas. And then based on that interview, I decided to create some additional information or documents. So I created two great handouts, and they're available for download at tamingthehighcostofcollege/45 as part of the show notes. The first one is the 10 tips for a successful college money talk. And again, it's about 2 pages long. It covers 10 ideas that you might want to be thinking about before you have the college money talk. And then we have a one-pager for those of you that don't want to read that much. And it's the college money talk cheat sheet with just, again, some questions to think about and some ideas in order for you to kind of work things out and plan ahead a little bit and think about what you're going to do and say when you have your college money talk or talks, because again, another idea is perhaps it doesn't happen all at once. All right, well, let's go ahead and jump in the interview with Jodi. And again, everything's available in our show notes at tamingthehighcostofcollege/45. All right, today I'm sitting down with Jodi Okun. She's the founder of College Financial Aid Advisors. Welcome, Jodi.
Thank you, Brad. How are you today?
I am doing great. So you do a lot of things that similar to what I do, but a lot of things different as well. So I think we'll have a great conversation. But before we jump into the weeds, so to speak, why don't you tell us a little bit about what you do, how you do it, and how you came to do it?
Okay, great. Well, I am the founder, president of College Financial Aid Advisors, where I help families privately with the financial aid process. I take them from beginning to end. Sort of beginning, I always say, is the summer of their student going into their senior year. And the end would be a year from that day when they're just about to move into college. So I help them with all the financial aid questions that they possibly can have. And what else I do is I am on Twitter and I run a hashtag chat called College Cash. It's every Thursday night at 5 p.m. Pacific time on Twitter.
Great. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about that, because that fascinates me, because I don't know a lot about, I'm a closet user of Twitter, so I don't know a lot about it. And I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that have heard of it, but don't really use it to its full potential. So tell us about what is a hashtag chat?
Okay. So located on Twitter, in order to break the conversation into mini conversations, we have hashtags. So hashtags is the number sign in front of words. So you would put the number sign or the pound sign in front of the word college cash, and that is my chat. So every Thursday night at 5 p.m. Pacific, if you do that, you can see the conversation that we're having. For instance, every Thursday night, we pick a topic, I invite a guest, I run a formal chat, meaning that my guest answers questions that I provide for them. And then students, parents, industry professionals, colleges, college admission vice presidents all come and they talk about it and they give their opinions or advice or tweets regarding that same topic. And I change topics every week. So for 52 weeks, we have a different topic that's kind of evolving around what is happening to high school juniors and seniors that are getting ready or in the college process. So it's kind of exciting, Brad.
Okay, so if I'm interested in participating, obviously I need a Twitter account, right?
Obviously, you need a Twitter account, and it's always nice to have your Twitter account be your first name and your last name if it's not used, so that when I'm tweeting to you, I can go, hey, Brad, how's it going today? What's going on? How's your week going? Instead of your company name, where then someone can't it's hard to have an engaging conversation with that person. And you sort of want to be Jodi to Brad having a conversation.
Right. And I guess there's a quick hint on that is there's Brad_Baldridge. There's Brad Baldridge all stuck together. There's Brad Baldridge. There's different combinations that you can look at. So if if you have a common name, then maybe you have to try a few variations and one may actually work for you.
Exactly. So if you're using this, your same name across other platforms, stick with the same so that everyone can find you, whether it's on Twitter or Pinterest or Google Plus or Instagram or Facebook. If you need to have your underscore, then go for it.
Right. Okay. So I have a Twitter account. I turn up on my computer Thursday at 5 p.m. Pacific. And what do I do to be part of your conversation versus just reading my own Twitter feed?
Right. Good question. So then up in the right corner, there's sort of a white box next to where it says tweet. And in that white box, you would put #CollegeCash, press enter. Once you press enter, then the whole College Cash stream will be sitting in front of you, and you'll be able to see the other people speaking in that sort of party group conversation. And then you can reply to them by pressing the arrow, or you can agree with what they're saying, and it's called retweeting. So retweeting would be saying, I agree with them. In fact, I agree with them so much, I'm going to press the little square button that has arrows on it, and I'm going to press it to say, I agree with you, and I'm going to say it again. And then they also have like a little star, a favorite button, where it's sort of like a thumbs up button. If you star what someone says, they can see it on their side and say, oh my gosh, Brad is agreeing. He's agreeing so much that he gave me a favorite gold star.
Okay. So they're part of a conversation. So they could type in questions or comments.
Right. So then you can also tweet. So if you form a tweet, which would be up on the top right of Twitter, there's a little tweet box. And if you write the question like, hi, Jodi, how are you today? You would put at the end of that #CollegeCash. You always want to have the hashtag at the end of your tweet to be in that conversation. So then I would see Brad is asking me how I am, and I can reply back to him. So keeping the hashtag keeps you in that conversation room, shall we say. If you don't have that, then I might not see that just for that, 5 to 6 p.m. Pacific time.
Okay. And then just out of curiosity, at 6 p.m., if I show up late or whatever, is it all gone, or is there a way to?
No, it's not all gone. There definitely lingerers. I'm always checking my College Cash stream. So if Brad came in at 6:15 and he had gone through all the tweets and he had one last question and he wanted to ask a question, then go ahead and ask the question. I'll probably be there since I am the hostess. I'm always reading my feed to see if people are asking questions, not just at 5 p.m. on Thursday nights Pacific time, but all week. People are having conversations in the College Cash stream. Other chats that you can look at, if you just use hashtag like financial aid or hashtag personal finance, you can see other people talking about topics that are relatable to something, or hashtag high school. Parents can go in there and see what the conversation is about high school.
Okay. So these conversations, you intentionally pick a particular time so lots of people show up at that time.
Correct.
But you could have a conversation that is just kind of at a random time with whoever happens to be there.
Yes, you can just have a conversation like I don't know if you're a hockey player, Brad, but the Ducks and the Hawks are going to play, right? So let's say the Ducks and the Hawks are going to play, and we don't know who's going to go to the Stanley Cup, but every TV show nowadays, sporting events, they have hashtags. So if you want to join in the conversation while you're watching a sporting event, you'll see it flashed on the TV what hashtag they're using. And if you use that at that time when it's live, you can be in a conversation of not everybody might be watching the sporting event and then using the hashtag on Twitter, and being a conversation going on at the same time. So it's very exciting, Twitter.
Okay. Yeah, I guess now that you mention it, I realize that Jimmy Fallon and The Tonight Show are often saying hashtag this or hashtag that, and
Right.
that's what they're doing. Great. So that's a great opportunity for people to kind of get some information and learn what other people are doing and that kind of stuff. And then I understand you also have specific topics and guests each week. How do we learn what's on the docket, so to speak?
So every Monday, I usually post who's going to be the guest for the week, and I begin to promote to our fans, our parents, our students, our industry professionals. A couple weeks ago, I had Princeton Review on. So Princeton Review, I sort of advertised it on Twitter and let everyone know Princeton Review is coming. Get your questions. Come see the answers. And everyone showed up at that specific time, and Princeton Review answered the specific questions that I asked them. They knew them ahead of time. We talked about it. And it was a great time for parents to learn more from Princeton Review. And instead of maybe being in an auditorium, asking them with a tweet a question like, what about the new scores for the SATs? And they were able to answer those right then and there.
Great. So I think that's a great resource for parents, especially ones that are technologically capable. So I think I'm going to give it a try. I know you've got stuff going on every Thursday, so I will start participating a little bit and see what I can learn on at least how to do it, if nothing else.
Right. And I think that, everyone on Twitter is so nice too. So you can expect that if you do show up and you're sort of, not knowing that there's always someone there to help you along. I'll help you. Everyone in the groups are usually friendly and they help you along. So join in. It's fun.
All right. Well, great. I will certainly do that, and I encourage everyone else to give it a try if they're interested. And let's change the topic now a little bit, because you also mentioned that you do work with individual families, and I think one of the topics that you and I were chatting about is the college talk, or the college finance talk, or the money talk. So let's talk a little bit about, first of all, can you introduce the concept, and then let's talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm all about the money talk. So when I say that, I mean, have parents, had that money talk with their students who are in high school. If your student's in high school and they're getting ready to apply to college, have you sat down at the kitchen table and had a discussion? This is what we saved. Maybe this is what we have in a 529, or this is what we have in our savings. This is what we have to spend. And talk about the student. Are they going to be applying, or are they applying to a college that the family can afford? And I know it's a really hard conversation, because sometimes as parents don't want to talk to our students about our personal financial situation, because maybe it's not comfortable, or it's not something we've done before, or how maybe we were raised. But having that conversation with them really gets them in a good place for life after college, because there is life after college, and they are going to have rent and utilities and groceries, and they are going to need to be fiscally responsible. So what's a great time to understand that here's what we can afford, and here's what the college costs. How are we going to maybe meet the gap, or what's the plan to pay?
Right. And I think that's a great conversation to have. I think both you and I have met with families that are stressed about that, and they haven't had the conversation, and it's kind of it's an underlying stress. And I think you're just talking it through and making sure everybody's on the same page helps.
Right.
I guess another challenge that I see with families, though, is they say, well, I think we can afford $20,000 a year, and now they say, well, okay, now we have to find colleges that cost $20,000. It's not quite that simple. So let's talk a little bit about net cost versus actual cost.
Right. So the cost of attendance, which is the advertised cost of each college, so it's called COA, or cost of attendance. The cost of attendance is tuition, room, board, fees. They also include books, supplies, transportation, and personal expenses. But what a college really costs, they bill you only for tuition, room, board, and fees. And if it's a semester school, then they bill you for half. in the summer, beginning the fall, and then the other half for the spring semester. I like to tell families, though you're not billed for books, supplies, and transportation, it is going to be part of the cost. So you need to understand that you will have to pay that. And you're right, finding a college that is within your budget, whether it's a state school, a public school, or a private school, that's where the student and the family needs to have a list that not only is a personal fit based on location, but it needs to be a fiscal fit. So it needs to be based on prices. So maybe there's some expensive schools on there that they might receive merit or financial aid, or maybe there's a state school or community college where they can do their first 2 years in that arena because of cost reasons. So always having a good list that they have choices when it comes to making a decision.
Right. And I think for a lot of people, and I've had a lot of families say things like, well, we're not applying to X, Y, or Z because they cost a lot of money, whatever that big number is. Mm-hmm. But when you start talking about net cost as well, if you go to some colleges, they may offer scholarships or other ways to bring the net cost down. So I think a lot of colleges are in the business of having a relatively high sticker price, but some of them, for the right student, will offer a discount. And I think that's a challenge for a lot of families.
Right. So I kind of, when I talk about that, I sort of say, sometimes colleges, mark the college up a little bit so they can, put it on sale in a way or discount it. So if your student did really well in high school and they have good grades and test scores, a college might offer them merit money, and merit's based on their grades and test scores. And then depending on the parent's fiscal situation, how many people live in their house, their income for last year, their assets, what they've saved, will depend on whether they are eligible for financial aid. And so I think it's important for families not to rule out colleges because they think they won't qualify. I think it's important to apply, make sure that you apply for financial aid, and then make an educated, good decision because you've covered all your bases and really spent some time digging in, creating a budget of what it's going to look like for 4 years, not just for 1 year.
Correct. And I think that's part of the money talk too is, some of the parents I've worked to, they've essentially have rules like, well, we can apply anywhere we want to. That doesn't mean we're going to go. We have to see what the net cost is going to be. Right.
And to piggyback on that, Brad, I would say, I do sometimes say to parents, are you going to say no? So if your student has applied, are you going to say, no, we can't afford that? Or are you going to say, we're going to make it work? And that needs to be part of this money talk conversation. Are we in debt, with student debt over $1 trillion because parents haven't said no?
Yes.
Okay.
Is the short answer to that.
Right. So is it really about the student, or is it really about the parents that haven't said no or haven't really been open about their fiscal means in order to afford that college? So that's what I try to get to, the root of that.
Right. And I think if you look at it from a student perspective, and I see this a lot, again, depending on your family and so forth, but there's a lot of kids out there, who have always had the latest video game and have always had, they get a car or have access to a car when they're ready to drive. They pretty much get what they need. They have the nice cell phone. And parents are happy to do it. I mean, that's why they work so hard. Mm-hmm. But providing $50 a month so that they can have the best cell phone or providing a $400 Xbox is a lot different than providing a $250,000 college education. But a lot of students don't realize that. They say, well, I've always got whatever I wanted. Everybody keeps talking like I'm going to school. Money's never come up, so I guess I don't really have to worry about it. I'm 17. I don't even think about it because I want an Xbox. Christmas time, it shows up. I need a cell phone. Birthday, it shows up. Mm-hmm. Why do I worry about college?
And that's why, I start with the conversation of what is the plan, or what do you think the plan is now. It doesn't mean that when you start in the summer before their senior year, that is going to be the plan the next summer when they start the fall of their freshman year. It's just, let's have a starting point. Okay, what's the plan? Is the plan is you have this amount in savings, this is how much college is going to cost, and plan A or plan B. And the plan changes. It does change, because parents will say, well, they got into this school and we think we can afford it and we want to make it work because our student has worked so hard. That's okay, as long as you've been educated and you're buying a very expensive consumer product. And college is a consumer product.
Mm-hmm.
It's in demand.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I have people often ask me, well, why does college cost so much? And it's, because they raise the prices and people still come.
Right.
That's the bottom line. And that's why it costs so much. I mean,
right.
As people are, and again, there's that balancing act where not all colleges are able to raise their prices as much as they'd like. But for a lot of, especially the in-demand colleges, they raise their prices. They have no problem filling their class. So why not raise their prices?
And to switch the conversation around too, I mean, there's a lot of different ways to come to this conversation. And I talk a lot about, return on investment. So, is your student going, and have they picked a college where their return on investment, are they going to major in something that is going to land them, a job with a fairly good salary? Is going to college versus not going to college? Statistics say that going to college, students are going to earn X amount of dollars more than if they didn't attend college. So, the conversation isn't just sort of where you and I started a little while ago, but it's also this whole return on investment, the value of the education. Will that make sure that student is employed? Are they going to be underemployed or overemployed? And I think when you're starting the college process, maybe those topics haven't come into play. It's just, I got to go to college and I got to go here. So that's why I try to broaden the conversation and put more on the plate.
Right. So how much do you think is a reasonable amount for people to borrow when it comes to college?
I like to use an example of, if your student is going to, get a job after college, that maybe their starting salary will be about $30,000. Let's just say, for an example, if it's going to be $30,000, they don't want to take out more than $30,000 in student loans. So that's kind of my gauge.
Okay, so now is that the student borrowing or the parent borrowing,
that's
or everybody together?
That's the student borrowing.
Okay, and then what's your opinion on parents borrowing additional funds to fill the gap?
I think it's a parent decision. I think it's a parent decision if they want to make this work, if they're not going to say no, if they're going to do whatever it takes. I think it's their decision of whether or not they need a loan or don't need a loan. And I would say I would turn the question over to you as the financial planner. Do you have a suggestion for that?
Yeah, I think everybody needs to really think about it and plan it. And I guess that's where what I run into is a lot of people just kind of seat of their pants it. I feel like it's a good idea that we pay for college. Mm-hmm. And what I tell people, especially, middle income and upper middle income families, is you can afford to pay for all the college education you want. You can afford to retire early. You can afford to have the nice boat. You can afford to have the vacation home. You can afford to take lots of nice family vacations. What you can't afford is to do all of those things. You're going to have to pick and choose. So if you want to take the nice vacations, or if you want to spend, if you want to commit your assets to college, great. But realize that you may have to give up the new car every 2 years, mm-hmm. or the vacation home, or the family vacations where you're taking everybody to Europe all the time. Flip side, if you say, I'm not going to pay for college, then maybe you can do some of those things. But I think that's the challenge for most families is, well, what impact will paying for college have on my retirement, on my other goals? And it's really hard to quantify, and most people don't think about it until crunch time. I've got a senior. I had this conversation with a dad a year ago. Daughter was accepted at NYU. She was a performing artist. Her NYU was her dream. But the net cost, $60,000 school. she won some scholarships and so forth, but the net cost was still $30,000.
Mm-hmm.
And he's looking at that and saying, and she's my oldest of four. Well, $30,000 times 4 years times 4 kids is a big number.
Right.
Can I do it? And the answer was, yes, you can, but
Right.
you're going to have to give up. You're going to have to continue to work till you're 64, 65. Early retirement's probably not in the picture, and, so forth and so on. So we ran the numbers and did the math and said, yes, it's possible.
Mm-hmm. Right. I think another piece that I am also trending on is that making payments for those loans while you're in school and not waiting till after the grace period, trying to teach parents probably know or hopefully know, but students need to learn what it means to accrue interest and principal and fees. And so if they're maybe taking $25 while they have that loan payment while they're in college, and know that that's a monthly expense, every expense from this point on being part of the process is something that we're moving towards, so that they're in the habit and creating good habits when it comes to budgeting and working on their expense sheet.
Absolutely. So where do you start with families? Let's say that someone contacts you and they're just starting out. And again, make up a scenario. Let's say they say, well, personally, we never went to college, or we went to college in a different country, which I hear quite often. So we don't really understand the system. We've got let's say we have a junior right now, or just finished our junior year. We're rolling into our senior year. What do we do first? How do we, jump into this process that, kind of what you say, where you start with people early in their senior year or late junior year?
Yeah. So what I do is I do like a 30-minute strategy session. So if people, want a 30-minute strategy session, they press the link on my website, and we schedule a call and we get on the phone. And the first thing is I just ask them kind of questions like, what's your student's GPA? What's your student's SAT score? That'll give me an idea if the student is going to get merit award, which has nothing to do with financial aid. And then where do you live? Like where does your student plan to go to college? Where would they wish if they could have their wish go to college? And then I ask how many people are in the family. I ask them what is their adjusted gross income? What did they make last year? Have they saved any money? And then the next question I say, what's your plan today of how you think that this is going to go? How do you think you're going to pay for this? And that's how we start. And then I give them some tools where they can look. Every college has a net price calculator on it on their financial aid site. So if the student is thinking of going to a particular college, parents can do their homework any time of day, go on that college website, use the calculator, how many people they have in their family, what they make, what their savings or assets are, and they can find out exactly, sort of ballparkish, what it will cost them to have that student go to that college. So that would be my first homework. And then usually we end the call with the parent saying, okay, I need to think about it and talk about it and metabolize, because it's a whole new foreign language. And then either, if they decide, yes, this is too overwhelming, Jodi, I need help, then we move to the next step. Or maybe they think they've got this and now they understand, and that was great, and I'm really happy for them.
Okay. Well, great. So how do families really, I guess, get a handle on where to start as far as even earlier than that? Are there things that freshmen and sophomores should be doing in preparation for the senior year? Do you ever look at someone and say, this is what you should have done a long time ago? Why didn't you?
Well, as far as whether families have a 2-income family or a 1 income, and if they have assets, we talk about what financial aid offices are looking at. And if they need financial planning, I usually tell them they should contact their financial planner if there's certain questions they have regard to maybe assets or college funds that they've saved. If they want to apply for scholarships, they can certainly apply for scholarships freshman and sophomore year. But the one thing that's really important is students need to do well in high school. If they do well in high school and work really hard in each of their classes and get good grades, then maybe they apply to schools that give them merit award. That's free money based on their grades and test scores. So starting early by getting educated is good. And, maybe I'm jumping into your boat here, but I'm all about the 529. If that's something that families can start when kids are born, right? Then that's what they should be doing.
Right. Absolutely. And yeah, I mean, that's what I tell people is if you want to save for college, there's probably better ways to do it and worse ways to do it. But the worst one of all is not doing it at all.
Right.
So maybe you could do this type of account or that type of account, and this type might be better than that type, especially when you look backwards and say, well, I should have done it this way or that way.
Exactly.
But the fact that you did something is probably better than doing nothing.
Right. So maybe, you had a 529, that's $70,000 and you did a great job and that pays for freshman year. Well, exactly, Brad. That's better than nothing, right?
Exactly. And it may have an impact on aid, but not as, and a lot of times we can kind of do what I would call is kind of emergency planning. We're saying, all right, well, what can we do to rearrange things in the short term to correct the mistakes that maybe we made when we started saving long ago? And sometimes it works out well. Sometimes, a lot of times it doesn't matter where you say, well, yeah, we could shuffle this around, but we're still not going to get aid. So there's no point in worrying about the fact that we saved.
Right.
Because our income is too high or the schools we're considering don't have anything to offer anyway. So there's a lot of different factors that come into play. But all right. Well, I think you've given us a lot of great information. I really appreciate it. If people want to learn more about what you've got going on or get a hold of you, how can they learn or track you down? Do you have websites?
Yeah. So
that kind of stuff?
I encourage you to visit my website, which is collegefinancialaidadvisors.com. So that would be the number one place. As I said earlier, I am on Twitter, so you can tweet me at Jodi, JODI_OKUN. And those are probably the best two places to get a hold of me. And I look forward to chatting with everyone. And Brad, thank you so much for inviting me today. Very useful information.
All right. Well, thanks for coming on. And again, all the information that she just gave us will be available in our show notes at Taming the High Cost of College. So you can go there and click on a link. It'll take you directly to her website. Thanks a lot, Jodi. And I look forward to tweeting with you. Is that the right way to say it?
That's the right way to say it. Thank you so much, Brad.
All right. Talk to you soon.
Have a great day. Bye-bye.
All right, bye-bye. All right, that ends our interview today. Hopefully you're planning now to go off and have a college money talk with your students. And if you are, don't forget you can download the cheat sheet and the 10 tips, and they're available at tamingthehighcostofcollege/45. Also, if you would leave us a review in iTunes or share this podcast with other people that you know, it would be greatly appreciated. That's all we have for this week. Talk to you soon. Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Taming the High Cost of College podcast. Now it's time for you to take action. Head to tamingthehighcostofcollege.com for show notes, bonus content, and to leave feedback for Brad. The next step on your college journey starts now.
Brad Baldridge is a registered representative of Cambridge Investment Research and an investment advisor representative of Cambridge Investment Research Advisors, a registered investment advisor. Securities are offered through Cambridge Investment Research Incorporated, a broker-dealer and member of FINRA and SIPC. Brad owns two companies, Baldridge Wealth Management and Baldridge College Solutions. The Baldridge companies are not affiliated with Cambridge Investment Research.